Now the next type of sampling is cluster sampling or area sampling. Now cluster means group. Till now what we were talking about was related to individuals, taking each individual unit and including it in samples. Now many a times what happens when the population is very big, it is difficult to include the units in the sample. So in that case what we do, instead of going for the units, we go for the clusters, that is group of people. For example, if we are going for the students, then as we know the population of the student is very big. So we cannot go for each and every student selection. So what we prefer? We prefer for group sampling, or we call it as a cluster sampling. So if I am studying the standard 9 students, then I will not select each student from standard 9 from different schools. What I will do? I will select some schools and then I can approach those schools and I can tell them that I want the students who are studying in the standard 9. So if they have the different divisions, then one division can be given to me by principal. Suppose standard 9B. So I go to standard 9B and I do the data collection. So there I am not dealing with each student in that standard 9B, but I am dealing with it as a group. So there I am following the cluster sampling. So what is the method? Assumption of homogeneity in the cluster. Now it is very obvious those students who are studying in the standard 9B, they will be having characteristics which are very similar, because they all will be of the same age group, since they are coming to the same school, same type of study they are doing, they may be coming from the same area. So there is lot of homogeneity in that particular group. Usually part of multi-stage design, as just now I have told you that I am not directly going to that division. First I am approaching to school. That means at the first stage I will be selecting the schools, and after that I am going for that particular class. So it is part of multi-stage design. What are the limitations? Deviance or variance within the cluster. Although we are saying that it is homogeneous group, but to some extent there can be deviance. Of course there are individual differences. So naturally that deviance is going to happen. Then cluster needs to be carefully defined. When we are going for clusters, then we should have a clear description of that cluster so that we can get the homogeneous group. Now the next is multi-stage sampling. When we talk about mixed method, we said that we will have both the types of method, that is probability sampling and non-probability sampling mixture. When we go for multi-stage sampling. For example, if I have to study something which is related to the attitude of people towards right to education in India. You all are aware that right to education has been recently introduced by our government of India, and that is applicable for all the states. So I have been given this responsibility to study the attitude of people towards right to education. So my population will be related to the whole of India. Now you know India is divided into different states. So I am not going to all the states. So at the first stage of sampling, I will by lottery method or by cheat method, I will select few states. Again, each state is made up of different districts. So when I come to the second stage of sampling, suppose if I have selected 5 states, then from each state I may randomly select 5 districts. So that is the second stage of sampling. Each district is made up of number of talukas. So at third stage of sampling, what I will do, from each district randomly I can select 5 talukas. Each taluka is constituted by some villages. So from each taluka, I will select 5 villages randomly, right? And from those villages, if I have to go for people, so next will be from those villages. Now I have given schools. The example talks about schools. So if I have to go for the schools, then what I will do? I will select few schools from each village. So that is again randomization, and after that, now if it is students, then I have to select the students. Now if I am studying the teachers, what would be the next stage? It is the teachers which I will be selecting. Now when I will be selecting the teachers, it may be my purposive sampling, because I cannot go for generalization. Whatever teachers the principal is going to make available to me, only that teachers I have to accept. So here if you see that in initial stages of the sampling, I am following random sampling, that is probability sampling, and at the last stage I am going for the non-probability sampling. So it is a mixed method where I have the combination of probability sampling as well as non-probability sampling. So both the types of sampling technique I am using here. So now when you select any sample for your research study, you have to keep certain things in your mind. What are those things? If there is high population variance, high sampling error. It stands for sampling error. What does it mean? Variance means variation. If there is lot of variation in your population, then there is high sampling error, because on that basis your generalizations cannot be done. Because of variation, the responses given by the people in your sample will vary, and therefore whatever conclusions or whatever solutions, whatever findings you will be getting, it will be difficult to generalize. High sampling error, low sampling reliability. Means what? Reliability talks about getting the same result again. So if I am selecting one sample today and I am getting some generalization or some solution which is based on that sample, if I select one more sample from the same population, I may get different findings. So higher is the sampling error, lower is the sample reliability. Higher is the sample size, lower is the sampling error. So when you ask more people about it, when you study more people, sampling error gets reduced. So when the sampling error gets reduced, you can go for generalization, which is applicable for total population. Now when we are doing the research study, we have to have the sampling design. That is how we are going to select our sample. So what is required for good sampling design? Our sample size should be adequate. How do we define this adequacy? When we talk about the adequacy of the sample, we have to first think about the size of the population. Adequacy of the sample is decided by the size of the population. If your sample is of 1 lakh students and if we are considering only 10 students, then 10 students cannot be considered as the adequate sample. So we have to keep in mind the size of the population. So larger the size, better it is. It should be accurate and reliable. That means it should have least sampling error. It should be representative. That is very important. You may be having large sample size, but if it is in a true sense not representing your population, then your findings cannot be generalized. For example, if we are talking about the students, something related to students' attitude towards media or the programs which are shown on the TV or social networking. Let us talk about social networking, because these are the things which are used by all the students irrespective of their age. So if you are studying the attitude of students regarding the social networking, now these students, they are from different strata, they are studying in different types of schools or colleges, they are having different types of facilities available to them at their home. Suppose if you say that if you select the sample only from the elite schools and you are not studying the students who are studying in BMC schools. Now see, these social media are available to everybody nowadays, and when you are studying your problem, you are just confining yourself to elite schools. So whatever findings you will be getting on the basis of this sample will not be applicable for whole population, because you have not considered other part of that population for your study. So then your sample cannot be called as a representative sample. If it has to be representative, then there has to be representation from all the parts of that population. Then only it can be called as representative sample. Maximum information about population at minimum cost, time and human power. That is again very important because you cannot go on doing your study. You have the limitations regarding all these resources. So, your sampling should give you maximum output by optimum or minimum utilization of the resources which are available to you.